There's a ton of misinformation out there about self-publishing, and in this video, we're gonna set the record straight. These are 9 huge lies about self-publishing that you don't need to believe anymore. 1. Self-publishing is for authors who can't get traditionally published. Jeez, that is so 2008. Seriously, stop thinking in a hierarchy between those two. I would argue that both are good choices depending on what's right for your book and what's right for you as an author. And I've counseled clients to go in either direction, and it is not dependent upon the quality of their book. For example, if you're writing literary fiction, like, you definitely need to go traditional publishing. There's not really a good market in the self-publishing world. On the other hand, if you are writing in a specific genre, a very niche genre, that is perfect for self-publishing because it's really easy to market and really easy to gain devoted readers. And you also have to ask yourself, what is right for you, right? If you don't have a 1.5 to 2 year runway to publish your book, then traditional publishing is definitely not for you. If you want to publish in the next couple of months or even 6 months from now, then self-publishing is the right option. Personally, I'm self-published and traditionally published. My first book, a collection of short stories, was traditionally published, and it was a lovely experience. And my second book was self-published because I already had the audience. I already knew how to do all the back-end stuff, so I'm like, why shouldn't I do this on my own and keep more of the lion's share of the profit for me? My next book I am going to traditionally publish, but in the future I could definitely go back to self-publishing as well. It all depends upon the book. So let's look at 2 authors who were traditionally published and then decided to self-publish instead. Barry Eisler was a former CIA operative and a black belt in judo. He'd published 7 books with Penguin and Random House and had hit the New York Times bestseller list. And after that point, he was offered another deal for 2 more books with St. Martin's Press. Barry said, no thanks, I'm gonna self-publish instead. What he had done is he ran the numbers and he knew that he could make more on his own. Or look at a big time author like Brandon Sanderson. He had traditionally published for a really long time, and then he decided, I think I can do this on my own. He set up a Kickstarter and raised $41.7 million to self-publish his own books. I haven't checked prices for self-publishing lately, but I think that's gonna cover it. Really, the next thing on the horizon isn't just self-publishing, it's selling direct. Forget the middlemen of traditional publishers and of Amazon. You go straight to your readers. You sell straight from your website. The second lie is traditional publishing does your marketing. I have talked to so many writers who are like, well, I don't want to self-publish because I'll have to do all the marketing. I think I'm just going to go traditional publishing because then a publisher will take care of that for me. For the vast majority of traditionally published authors, their publishing house doesn't put a huge amount of energy into promotion and marketing for them. I know it's kind of the dirty secret in the industry, but they have, say, 10 or 15 or 30 books coming out that season, and they'll pick 1 or 2 to put all their effort behind, to make like a major marketing push, advertiser money, publicists, but the rest of the books sort of get the crumbs. Traditionally published authors have to work just as hard to do marketing as self-published authors do. So if that's a lie you've been telling yourself, that is not a good reason to choose between self-publishing and traditional publishing. Either way, you are the final one responsible for doing the marketing. Now, traditional publishers do take some of the weight off of you by sending out art copies, for example, or at least allowing you to consult with the in-house publicist or marketer so you get some like directions on where to go. But in general, no matter what your publication route, you should expect that you're gonna have to do a lot of marketing. The third lie is self-published books can't be high quality. I feel like this is very much an old school mentality, like circa 2010. The truth is that self-published books can be any quality, right? From impeccably superb, like definitely traditional publishing level, to pretty much rubbish. Now, what we've seen over the last 15 years is that there's been an incredible buildup of the freelance network for authors who are self-publishing. I'm talking about a great network of cover designers, of copy editors, of proofreaders, of formatters. Now, those do cost money, right? And the more money you put into the book on the back end, the better your sales chances once it actually gets published. And at least in my experience, the main thing that separates self-published books from traditionally published books is copy editing. Once I was in a writer's forum and this guy complained like he was so angry that he got a bad review, his very first review on Amazon, from someone who complained that they found typos. And he had posted the very first chapter of his book. And I took a look and I'm like, you have 3 typos on the first page. As a reader, if I'm finding 3 typos on the very first page of your book, that does not make me want to continue. Look, I know a lot of you are good storytellers, right? You can create good scenes, you have great interaction, but it is a very highly specialized skill set to be able to do good copy editing. So if you want your self-published book to be the type of book that is regarded as high quality, you absolutely have to invest in a really good copy editor. So there's a copy editor who works with me at Bookfox. Her name is Danielle. She does incredible work. Seriously, she's like a genius on the page and will catch a billion mistakes that you did not think were in your book. And she's like, well, here's the fix. But what I love about copy editors is in the end, they make you look good. And I know that it feels bad to find all those little red marks on your page, like you want to believe that your writing is pristine and perfect, but either you find those mistakes now, or readers will find them and then they're going to give you 1 star. And what Danielle excels at is making you look really good, really professional. I'll put a link to her copy editing page in the description, and I would highly recommend that if you have a book coming out, you should definitely use her. 4th lie that we often hear is self-published books don't sell. You know what else doesn't sell? Traditionally published books. There's an often cited number that the average book sells 3,000 copies, but average actually doesn't tell you very much, right? Because that's being pulled upwards by these Harry Potter bestsellers, while the vast majority of books aren't moving that many copies. A more realistic number would be median sales, meaning half the books sell under this number, half the books sell over this number. And I've seen various numbers on this. The lowest one I've ever seen is 250, meaning half of all published books sell under 250 copies. I've also seen a number that's a little bit closer to 1,000. So, you know, you can pick your number, but ultimately most books do not sell over 1,000 copies. And being traditionally published is no guarantee that you can actually move copies of your book. There are tons of flops in the traditional publishing space as well as the self-published space. So I'll just say there are tons of examples out there of self-published authors who are selling tens of thousands of copies, hundreds of thousands of copies. And I'll also say that writing skills and marketing skills are very different skill sets. Just because you can write doesn't mean you can market, and just because you market doesn't mean you can write. Your goal really is to get better at both. There actually are a lot of advantages that self-publishers have that traditionally published authors don't have. One, you have the ability to price your book. I cannot emphasize how amazing this is. I was just checking out a publisher who they charge $38 for a hardback and $22 for a paperback. How many copies of your book do you think you're going to sell at those price points? The publisher is going to make a ton per book, but the author's only going to get about 5 readers. As a self-publisher, you can price your book at a point that makes it an easy entry point for authors who are just like, this looks interesting. Sure, I'll try it. It's $5. 2, self-published authors can control sales. In other words, they can say, hey, my book's on sale for 99 cents or $1.99. Go and buy it. And they can send out emails or post alert on social media to let everybody know, hey, like here's a sale, and really drive traffic. With a traditional publisher, you don't get to control the sales price like that. And lastly, you can do things like BookBub. BookBub, and there's a whole host of other imitators out there, are basically discount sites for books where you say, hey, I'm going to discount my book to say 99 cents. They include the book in their email and you get a couple thousand readers. Yes, it does cost money, but I find that most authors tend to recoup their money in the very first round of sales. And then if those authors go on to buy more of your books, then that's all profit. But if you're watching this and you're thinking, you know, I don't think I'm that good at marketing, well, you can get better. And I would recommend that you take my course, Your First Bestseller. There are 45 videos teaching you step by step how to get your book into the hands of readers who will enjoy it. That's one of 11 courses in my Bookfox Academy, and the link to that I'm going to post below. The 5th lie is you can't make a living self-publishing. This is a real head shaker, and honestly, I don't know why this lie persists, because there are tens of thousands of writers out there who make a full-time living, sometimes quite lucrative, off of self-published books. Now, if my sole goal was to make money and I had to choose between traditional publishing and self-publishing, I would definitely choose self-publishing. By the way, my sole goal is not to make money, by the way, but just in case yours is. And that's because self-publishing allows you so much more control over the product, it's so much quicker, and you get to keep most of the profits. Yes, there are some literary superstars that traditional publishing definitely worked out for them, obviously, right? But for the average person, you have a better shot of striking it rich through self-publishing. It's usually $1 to $2 with a traditional publisher, while with self-publishing, like every book of mine that I sell, I get $4 to $5. That's anywhere from 2 to 5 times as much revenue. Yes, there were more upfront costs. I had to pay a copy editor, I had to pay a cover designer, I had to pay a formatter, but in the end, I recouped those costs the very first day my book went on sale. And from then on, it was all gravy. So if you want to make a living with self-publishing, I'll give you a 7-step process. Really quick, here it is. 1, you choose a niche, something like cozy romance or hard sci-fi or Christian YA. You're looking for a niche with hardcore readers who consume massive amounts of books in that genre. And you should actually enjoy reading in this genre too. You can't just like pick one opportunistically and be like, I'm gonna make a lot of money on this. You actually have to love the genre, of course. 2, write in a series, right? Standalone books don't earn money. You wanna earn money, write a series. Ideally, the series is gonna have the same characters and the same world. That way you don't have to make it all up every single time you start. It's also a better hook for your readers because they wanna revisit your world and see those characters again. I'll also say that it's better to have an episodic series rather than a continuum series. An episodic series is something like Sherlock Holmes or another detective story. At the beginning of each book, you basically start over and it's a new case and it's a self-contained book. A continuum series would be something like Game of Thrones, right? Where you have an overarching story that carries through 7 books. It's very fast to churn out episodic books and readers get hooked on them very easily. 3, release books regularly. To do this well, you have to write quickly. I'm talking about 2 to 3 books a year. And remember, these should be shorter books. You don't get paid more for writing longer books. You get paid the exact same amount. Regular short books gets you into the money. 4th step, discount the first book in the series to 99 cents. It's really best to do this once you've already published 3 or 4 books, because then that 99-cent book is working as a hook or a loss leader to bring the reader into your world, and then they want to go on and buy the rest of your books. 5th step, do BookBub or similar services. You lower the price point of your book to 99 cents. Some people say do free. I don't agree with that philosophy. I think 99 cents is better. That way you get massive sales for that first book, you get lots of reviews on it, and a certain number of people are going to filter through and then read the rest of the books in the series. Which leads me to my 6th step. That's when they buy the rest of the books in the series, and the longer your series is, the more revenue potential that you have. And then 7th step is just to evaluate, like, what's going well? Is there some part of the chain that's breaking down? Does your first book, is it not enough of a hook that it makes readers want to read the rest of it? Okay, well, that's going to be a problem. Do you not have enough books in the series, or are there books in the series which didn't get reviewed very well or getting low stars or something? Anyway, you figure out what went well, what you could do better the next time, and then you start the next series. The 6th lie, you can't get a self-published book into a bookstore. Okay, so it is easy to get the possibility of distribution. All you have to do is sign up with Ingram Spark. It's not that expensive. Formatting and cover design can be a little tricky. I've encountered a lot more problems with Ingram Spark than uploading to Amazon, but still, like, that gives you the possibility of distribution. But here's the trouble. The possibility is very different than actually getting into a bookstore. Bookstores could order your book, but what makes them want to? And if you think about it, it is difficult for traditional publishers to get their books into actual bookstores as well. Let's just break down the numbers. 3 million books published just in the United States alone every single year. A regular average Barnes & Noble can carry about 100,000 books. And of those 100,000, say 10,000 are actually titles published that year. So do the math on this one, right? 3 million books, 10,000 new books in a bookstore. That means 1/3 of 1% of new books actually make it into a bookstore. And the vast majority of those are probably going to be traditionally published books, right? The main reason being because they have sales reps who come and have a relationship with the book buyers, and they say these are going to be the big books of the season, and the buyer says, okay, we'll purchase those. Do you have a sales rep? This is part of the problem for self-publishing. But don't despair, right? As a self-publisher, you do have some avenues where you can get an advantage. One is to go local, right? If you go to local neighborhood bookstores, they are usually overjoyed that they can feature a local author. And remember, independent bookstores hate Amazon with a passion. So if you go and offer to sell your books on consignment, they usually say yes. But lastly, remember this important tip. Online sales are going to be your bread and butter. It's your ego that wants to see your book on a bookshelf in a physical bookstore, but that's not actually the best sales tactic. Physical bookstores is probably not going to make a huge bump in your sales. So push all of your marketing effort towards selling your book online, and don't let your emotions cloud good business sense. 7th lie, self-publishing limits your career prospects. I do not think there is shame around this the way that there used to be shame. I mean, there are so many examples of self-publishing leading to traditionally published deals. From Andy Weir to E.L. James, the membrane between self-publishing and traditional publishing, it's getting thinner and thinner. I mean, if someone really looked down on me for self-publishing a book, I would look at them and be like, are you aware what decade you're in? It just depends on what you want as an author, right? Self-publishing is not the right choice if you're going for prestige. It's not going to get you prestige, no. But there are a lot of good reasons why self-publishing would be the right option for you. Look at the example of Hugh Howey, right? At first, he did traditional publishing with Wool, and then he decided after a few books, he's like, I think I can do this on my own and make more money and do it better. In the end, what he sold to publishers was just the print rights, and he kept digital rights for himself because he was making $150,000 a month on digital sales. Good decision, Hugh. Really, in the end, what matters is book sales. That's how the industry measures success. Doesn't matter if you're self-published or traditionally published, you move books, that's successful. 8th lie, self-published books aren't taken seriously by readers. Honestly, I don't think 99% will notice. If you have a good-looking cover that looks traditionally published and you have copy edits, nobody's gonna know. What they want is a good story. They want a nice cover that promises the story will be good, and they want reviews because it reduces their risk of purchasing. If others liked it, they probably will too. Take an author like Christopher Paolini, who, when he was 15 years old, he wrote the first book in the Aragon series. No one cares that it was self-published. No one cares that he was 15. They care declared that the story was fantastic. And the ninth lie about self-publishing is you need a huge platform to succeed. I do think platform helps more if you are publishing nonfiction, right? You have some measure of authority so people are like, ooh, I want to buy their book. But really for fiction, all you need is a gripping story and people will get hooked on your storytelling. Does platform help? Of course it helps. Like, you have a platform, it's not like I'm going to tell you to throw that away. I'm just saying if you don't have a platform, you shouldn't feel terrible about it. Jane Friedman has an excellent newsletter called The Hot Sheet, which covers industry news about writing and books, and I'd recommend you subscribe to it. Recently, she analyzed 150 debut authors to see who had connections, like how did they get published? And she said 20% of them had no obvious connections. They hadn't gone to a fancy school, they didn't know an editor, they hadn't published a book before, and that's in traditional publishing. So I would wager the amount of successful self-published authors who have zero platform at all, it's probably much higher. Just remember this, in the end, your platform is your books.